inflation is way under control. Given what's happening economically, we do have to lower rates. Either that or they got to increase them and shut this whole thing down, reset, and go forward from there. The Bank of Canada is looking into the future going,
we actually need to keep things pumped up a little bit.
The economy is definitely trending down. Manufacturing continues to trend down. All the things that we've talked about so many times are now showing up.
Yeah, I'm a little conflicted, Patrick. If it was literally 3 weeks ago, a month ago, I would have said the same thing as you. For sure, maybe more, I would have thought. But man, the stock market is just ripping. This 5-year bond has never been so volatile in the history, I don't think, of like its existence. It's just like a roller coaster. And these things are supposed to be like steady Eddie. This is not meant to go up and down like the stock market, but I'm just a little concerned. And usually you're the concerned guy. Usually you're the doomer, gloomer, boomer. Today, I'm being the concerned citizen here. I'm going to kick off this show. I'm going in. I'm going hot. I'm going right to the meat and potatoes of this. What's going to happen? Give me a Patrick prediction on interest rates tomorrow. By the time this airs, it's going to be Friday. The interest rate announcement will already have been done. But just so everybody knows, we're taping this on Tuesday, December 10th. So Patrick, what is the Patrick prediction?
So frustrating, right? I'm traveling this week. We got too much going on, so we couldn't hold off doing the show. My prediction, I don't know. I really am kind of tossed with this one. The Bank of Canada.
Don't be a politician now. Don't be a politician now. Give me your prediction. Just give it to me straight.
Okay, I'm going to give it to you. Let me think this through a little bit. I think, again, the Bank of Canada is between a rock and a hard place of what they got to do. If they don't cut rates, the recession that we're now in is going to only get worse. On the other side of that, if they do cut rates, we're going to get our butt handed to us with the US dollar. I mean, there's many factors. Okay, I think they're going to cut half. 50 basis
half a point, 50 basis points.
Yep.
Wow, that's good. That's a pretty big cut though, Patrick. So let me ask you this then. Let me go a little deeper. And I'm going to show after what all the big banks are thinking is going to happen. But before I get there, what do you think would have been the cut if we wouldn't be in the kind of Trump mania component of that we're in right now, which is stock market's at an all-time high. We've got tariff talks, which is introducing. I mean, listen, Canada's currency is always very important. Where we trade in relation to the States is very important to our country. But these tariffs and these tariffs talk and all of this stuff that's happening, our dollars now becomes even much more important of how that all goes down. So do you think it always would have been 50 basis points, Patrick? Or do you think it's the game has changed? Because I'm kind of feeling like the game's changed a little bit.
Well, it has changed a little bit, but let's get back to, why do they need to lower rates? So the future state of whatever tariffs might represent is only one component. I don't think the Bank of Canada can hang their hat on any of that because nothing's come to fruition yet. And Trudeau continues to put his foot in his mouth. Let's not even go there. But let's just talk about why they would lower rates even more. And fundamentally, it's because the recession is, in fact, here. We can talk about Polaz, former finance minister, saying,
hey, listen, make no mistake. This is not some vibe session or vibe,
whatever they called it. Got nothing to do with vibes. We're literally in a recession and it's only getting worse. So the point is this, is that we've seen the unemployment numbers continue to go up. We're seeing businesses struggle. And, the Bank of Canada is looking into the future going, we actually need to keep things pumped up a little bit. So I think that's why we're going to see 50 basis points. The economy is definitely trending down. Manufacturing continues to trend down. All of the things that we've talked about so many times are now showing up. And so I think they're left with a 50 basis point cut. I think if I go future state, I think in the spring they're going to take a pause, but I think they have to do 50 basis points tomorrow. We'll see.
I'm a little conflicted, Patrick. If it was literally 3 weeks ago, a month ago, I would have said the same thing as you. I would have said 50 basis points for sure, maybe more. I would have thought. But man, the stock market is just ripping, and I'm curious, and I'm like, I love it when I look at my Wealthsimple account. I'm like, wow, that's pretty incredible in the last month. But then I'm like, gosh, I feel like they're gonna hold back on their rate cut because of that, because that's gonna, rate cuts there is going to fuel more stock market. And I'm curious. And listen, nobody knows what the hell these guys are thinking, even if they're thinking. There's no doubt they have their models and so on and so forth. But I'm just a little concerned. And usually you're the concerned guy. Usually you're the doomer, gloomer, boomer. Today, I'm being the concerned citizen here, thinking like I'm concerned the stock market ripping is going to prevent them from doing a 50 basis point cut and them only doing a 25 basis point cut or maybe even unfortunately doing a pause. Man, I would hate that. I hope that doesn't happen, but I'm a little concerned about it.
Well, I mean, you make a good point, but at the end of the day, Canada's got really nothing to do and has no impact on stock markets. So, whatever they do isn't going to change any of that. So ultimately, the U.S. continues to do quite well economically, way better than what Canada's doing. And so when we look at, again, we have to go back to why do they want to lower rates? Well, first off, inflation is way under control. As a matter of fact, arguably, if you break out things like rent increases and or you break out the interest portion of things, or like when you look at CPI overall, we're well under 2%. So they have every reason to actually bring those rates back down. Arguably, we're going to struggle with inflation as the Canadian dollar weakens against the U.S. I mean, there's lots of debate around that. But, as our dollar gets weaker, and given how much business we do with the U.S., our cost of goods is going to eventually go up. And raising interest rates or pausing isn't going to change that fact. So all to say that I really believe that given what's happening economically, we do have to lower rates. Either that or they got to increase them and shut this whole thing down, reset, and go forward from there. So, that's why I'm looking at it. But I mean, like you, but let's go back to a couple of things, JG, when we look at, and we've said this many times, because when we're always looking at through the lens of a real estate investor or what's going to happen economically. You and I both know that real estate deals are happening on an ongoing basis. You just did a great deal in your own hometown because of that. That's all part of it. But when we look at the store value, we cannot negate the fact that our currency is losing huge value. So I want to just, insert here, you need to get capital put to work. And that can look like real estate. When we look at the price of gold, when we look at what's happening in Bitcoin, the money is going to those stores of value. And as investors, we have to look at all of those things. A house priced, by the way, if you go back 20 years, you look at a house priced in gold, an average price of a house priced in gold, it was like, whatever, let's say 650 ounces of gold. Today, 271 ounces of gold. Now, we look at gold as real money. At the end of the day, we think our real estate prices are going up or our hard assets, those stores of value, are going up in price. It's not. It's our currency losing value. That's the bottom line. We have to get our money to work. And so back to interest rates, this all impacts where things are going to go with interest rates. I'm going to stick with 50 days.
You're gonna stick with it. I love it. I do want to see on the next show. I'd love to see a chart from you because I know you're a chart specialist now with some new tools you got. I want to see a chart from you on the price of real estate in gold, and it'll be fascinating to see the price. What has happened to real estate in the priced in gold? That'll be very interesting.
It's okay. So do you want to know what it is? Real estate prices have gone down.
That's my point. That's exactly my point, and what I probably figured happened. Yeah. Exactly, 100%. Now, so the average 5 of the 6 big banks are thinking 50 basis point cut. So that's kind of the consensus right now on the street, but we'll see. I mean, things, obviously the big rumors are out. You'll see by the time this episode airs, you will have the truth of what actually happened. We'll see. Now, Patrick, we got a lot to cover today, so we got to move on. We got to move on quick, but this is fascinating. The 5-year bond taking a dive. I mean, I don't want to dramatize it, but this is taking a dive. It was on the last show. You and I were talking about how bond rates were going up, and it was 3.13. I remember, here we are, 2.85. This 5-year bond has never been so volatile in the history, I don't think, of like its existence. It's just like a roller coaster. And these things are supposed to be like steady Eddie. This is not meant to go up and down like the stock market. But gosh, now this I like to see because for me as a real estate investor, because this is where real mortgage pricing is going to go. And I think this is an indicator of what the street or what the market thinks is going to happen what the Bank of Canada is going to do, which is they're going to decrease according to the market.
Well, when we see bond yields do this, this is just bond rates. When we look at what's going on in the bond market, it just speaks to the overarching uncertainty. And, money's going in, then it's going out. People and, corporations, just the economy in general doesn't know what's happening. There's so much uncertainty, and that's why we're seeing the volatility.
Now, I think we have to talk about Governor Trudeau. Prime Minister Trudeau. I don't know what to call him anymore, Patrick. It's like Donald Trump speaks, and he's able to rebrand something just by sending a tweet. But I thought this tweet that he wrote was hilarious. Now, you follow this stuff much more closely than I do, Patrick. What's been kind of happening out there?
Well, it just speaks to, Trudeau. Listen, everybody knows my view of Trudeau and our federal government, and I think, the majority of Canada's finally come to that similar conclusion. I don't need to get into name calling, but listen, he tries to front run and get into Mar-a-Lago and have a conversation with Trump, and ultimately, he said, tariffs will be devastating to Canada. Well, Trump looks at him and goes, yeah, that's too bad. Ultimately, maybe what we should do is you should become one of the states, and you could be the governor of it. And now he's literally mocking Trudeau because Trudeau has gone on to actually trash talk MAGA, and talk about what Trump should do. And considering the conservatives are following that same path. So rather than understand that you can't push the U.S. around, and you certainly can't push Trump around. And when you look at the team he's surrounded himself with, Trudeau doesn't stand a chance. He is in the deep end of the pool, and he can't swim. As a matter of fact, somebody's tied weights to his feet. He's going down in a freaking epic way. Like, it's just ridiculous. It's beyond ridiculous. It's infuriating. I have to use my most stoic kind of thought process just to not get wound up about it. It's embarrassing. It's crazy.
Now, any news on the, and I know it's not on our agenda, but gosh, I can't help but talk about it. What about the Doge? Is the Doge still happening? Where are we at with the Doge?
Yeah, Doge, Musk and Vivek. You can't come up with two better people to drive the Department of Government Efficiency. Two mega business owners who know everything there is to know about efficiencies. Vivek is himself, built a multi-billion dollar business. Of course, Musk is Musk in terms of how he operates. I love it. I think it's going to be so freaking painful over the next 12, 18 months. It's going to be a ripple effect right into Canada. We're going to feel it. But ultimately, they're going to hack and whack and cut to the degree they can. And yes, they got to get a number of things through Senate and all the things they got to do. They're going hard. And this has always been my thing, which is run the country like a business and quit going into this huge debt, these huge deficits. Run it like a business. And ultimately, we have politicians who have no clue around business. And I'm speaking of Canada. Now you look at what Trump has done. He himself, uber successful in business, like it or not, doesn't matter. But you look at Kennedy, you look at Vivek, you look at Musk, you look at Tulsi. These people are brilliant in all aspects of what they do. I'm very, very optimistic about what the U.S. is going to do going forward, and it has a huge impact on Canada, and I hope some of it rubs off on Canada at the end of the day. My concern is how much damage Trudeau can do between now and the election.
Oh, I know, buddy. I know. Listen, you just pick yourself up there. You're going to be okay. But I'll tell you this. This is a chart here. I just put up a chart about, government getting bigger, entrepreneurs, we're having fewer and fewer entrepreneurs, and we're having bigger and bigger governments. You and I don't like this naturally. And I think the average person should really focus on, pushing entrepreneurship and not more government. But more on that a little bit later. I do think, and remember, Patrick, when this whole thing started, you'll remember it was 1 month ago, buddy, 1 month ago. I said that if anything can happen with this Doge is that if it can change the culture around and if it could start to shift the culture, it will be a success. And the one thing now, I got to say, the problem with social media and the problem with YouTube and the problem with algorithms nowadays is they feed you what you want to see. And as a result of this, I seem to be seeing a lot of cheering for the fact that this is happening. A lot of people are excited about slimming the government down. A lot of people are excited about making sure that we keep these things in check. People are excited about returning, to key concepts like work ethic, like, you know what I mean? Like having a purpose and not just living off the government. So these are, to me, really good changes. And I 100% agree with you. I hope this rubs off on Canada. But that being said, maybe I'm only seeing what I want to see online. I mean, that's unfortunately the algorithms do that.
Well, you look at what's happening right now. Let's look at France melting down, Germany's melting down, the UK is melting down. I mean, like literally, they are melting down economically. The most regulated countries in the world are finally coming off the rails. And when you even look at the trend of Australia, which is a lot like Canada, we are doing more regulation, more government control, and ultimately we see the future. And this is what's frustrating about it, as capitalists, as libertarians, if you will, or just looking into the future. I mean, if you ran your business like that, or I ran my business like that, we wouldn't be in business. Nobody would, by the way. So when I look at the public sector and the bureaucracy that the government continues to create, it is costly, and they keep putting free in front of things. And for some reason, people don't get it. Nothing is free. They're spending your money, your tax dollars.
Yeah.
And I mean, think about it. We're taxed on our income. We're taxed on what we spend. We're taxed. I mean, it's crazy. And people go, I want free dental. Okay, well,
it's not free. You're paying for it. You're paying for it in your taxes.
Yeah. It's nuts. Anyway, we can go on.
But this culture, this is the culture I'm talking about, Patrick, where, and this to me, we'll see. Time will tell. So far, I like what I've seen so far. The other thing I've seen, and I've seen this in Canada, by the way, and you and I are both going to a big event this weekend, big real estate event. We're both speaking. You're hosting. You're intimately involved. I get to pop in and be your wingman for a little bit, be your arm candy, if you will. But
you're my buddy. You make me look good.
I'm curious to see, the sort of the vibe of people down there, and I'm going to have these conversations. But I will say, a lot of people that I don't typically talk politics with, I don't typically talk about this stuff with, they've come out of the woodwork in the last month and are much more open about this stuff. And that's the cultural shift I'm starting to feel. And I really don't want to, maybe I'm just seeing what I want to see, and I'm always cautious about that. But man, if we can make that shift and start to celebrate things like entrepreneurship again, start to celebrate things like hard work, start to celebrate things like, all those things that I feel we've lost, I think it's going to be very, very interesting. And I kind of feel like it's starting to shift. I hope it just continues. We'll see. Time will tell.
It is shifting, and we're going to see a real shift from the wokeism that's really, really taking place right now. And I think that's a healthy shift. The pendulum has swung way too far to the left, and even too far to the left for the left. And so I think it's going to start to come back. I'm looking forward to that. So if you like these episodes and you want to learn more about what's going on with real estate in Canada, investing in real estate, and understanding how to invest in real estate the right way, head on down to the descriptions below. Follow those links.